All right. I'm assuming everybody can see this. Let me know if you can't. So email design and development is a whole new world. It's not what I studied for. I'm glad to hear, Mohammed, you're already in the world. And it sounds like a lot of people are job hunting and considering this world. So I'm just going to share what I know. And there's always, I think, in any branch of tech, there is so much to learn and know every day, right? So if you have a question and I don't know, I'm happy to find out for you and point you to one of my many email colleagues who can, or get you to resources like Email on Acid or Litmus that are both really, really good resources if you're interested in learning about this world. So just wanted to preface it with that if you're coming at this from a web or software engineering background, this may seem kind of foreign. So for my intro, it is true I'm a manager of design and development for Amadeus. That is a travel company that's based in Barcelona. We have major partnerships with local businesses though, like Southwest Airlines. And there is a whole engineering team that works with all of the software that for booking flights and handling flights, but I support hotels around the world and work with their data and work on their branding and design. So I'm not in the airlines branch, I'm in the hospitality branch. I just passed 5 years of experience in my role, even though I was hired for a small company called Digital Alchemy that was based in North Richland Hills back in 2017. It was 46 people. We were acquired by TravelClick and then acquired by a bigger fish, Amadeus. And now it would take a really big fish to acquire them. So I think that 2 acquisitions in 2 years roller coaster is probably over, which is good. So my team and I have, well, soon to be 6 direct reports all over the place. We all work remotely, although a lot of us are based in the Dallas area and have an Irving office that we go to from time to time. But my team and I use HTML and MJML. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. CSS and JavaScript to create emails and web forms for all the hotels. So my colleagues in the website, we also build websites in a parallel team, but I'm not on the web development team, if that makes sense. And as I mentioned, I am a career changer. I have my master's in teaching. I taught 3rd grade for 4 years, and I taught high school biology for 3 years. And the quick version of my story is that in the summer, I had a second job at tech camps. I was a camp director, 2 weeks at UT Austin and 2 weeks at TCU. And I thought what the students were learning was amazing. And I decided to start teaching it myself, just out of curiosity to see, what's this HTML about? What are you guys doing with video game design and development? What do all of these things that they were learning. And so that's how I stumbled into Free Code Camp. And I liked it so much that I worked on that for a few months, and I'm kind of a older, I guess, Free Code Camp Dallas member. So I don't know if you guys know Austin or Josh or some of those guys that are from way back. And those are the people that I first met when I started. And then at that point we were doing in-person meetups regularly at Node Co-working in North Dallas. Then COVID hit and all of that got derailed. And then I'm just glad to see now, even though I'm still an admin on the page, the Facebook page, and actually on this Meetup group too, I'm not as involved by any means as I used to be, but I'm glad for the opportunity to be here today. Anything I can do to help Free Code Camp keep going and share my story, if I can be of help in any way, I just view it as paying it forward, because when I showed up, lots of people helped me. So. Oh yes, I even have a little nerdy top contributor badge from doing all the Meetup work and stuff, keeping the group going back in 2018. So that's pretty cool. Okay. So today I'd like to talk a little bit about the email industry in general, and then also, as promised, web versus email development. That by itself, I could probably go on and on for, so I'm going to give you a very quick rundown on some of my personal favorite differences that usually are surprising to people. But as I mentioned, I wanted to back up and talk about email as an industry as a whole, because I didn't know about all of these facts and data and number that I'm about to present to you when I first got started. And it is definitely a booming industry. Email has become the preferred way for businesses to be engaged with their customers. And it makes sense to me, right? Like most people don't really want to get a phone call or text messages, although they're trying to make that a thing. But email is good because you can always unsubscribe anytime you want if it's a marketing email, and it has a really good return on investment. I'm going to show some numbers about that in just a moment. So it is a big industry and there are lots of job opportunities available. That's what I'm trying to say. So you might want to consider it, as some of you already mentioned or are doing. Okay, so the number of emails that are sent every day is a huge number, 333.2 billion. And that's from Entrepreneur. The link to the source, by the way, in this whole slideshow I can share later. That's where I'm getting these numbers from. But every single day, there are a lot of emails flying around. And that means that there's a lot of email developers and email marketing teams working to design those, code those, test those, and deploy them. So there is need for sure in this field, and just a lot of hands in this work. Part of the difference with web is the complexity of what we're trying to deliver in the best, most responsive way. So part of the complexity of what we're up against is there are more than 300,000 potential renderings for an email. And what I mean by that is when you consider the email service providers such as Apple Mail or Gmail or all of those different platforms, and operating systems like what version of Outlook are you using? And when you consider, is it an app that is on somebody's phone, or is it a web-based, like Office 365 that the person is using? When you consider screen sizes, and over half of emails are opened on small screens we have to do mobile first design for sure, because most people are going to interact with email in that way. Very few people actually open on like a full desktop screen anymore, but it has to look good there too. And also a big one is whether images are enabled or blocked. So the best, most accessible way is to have descriptive alt tags in your email so that in case images are disabled or blocked in that inbox when your email hits it, it's not just looking very broken imagey, right? So there are so many different ways when you think about all the combinations of how someone could interact with your email code that it can get overwhelming, but we have learned to, in this field, to narrow it down by focusing on the most frequently used combinations of that. So Apple Mail is a big one, Gmail is a big one. Still quite a few people who are on Outlook, and that is a whole nother dragon to slay. But this is, for me, this is a good challenge to see what we can do with our design to handle and care for as many possibilities as we can. So email marketing, as I mentioned, to put a dollar amount on this, $7.5 billion in 2020, and that's kind of pre-pandemic. So during the pandemic, I would imagine that a lot of dollars went, this online shopping and all of the interactions, everything going online during the pandemic probably would increase this. And it's steadily rising set to cross the $10 billion threshold. So again, there's just a lot of money and revenue driven for all kinds of businesses through email marketing. Okay, with that, in email, there are two broad categories: marketing or campaigns, as I've mentioned, and then transactional emails. So marketing emails focus on promoting sales and offers and things like this to generally a list of people who have signed up to be on the email newsletter mailing list. And that information can be captured a number of ways. Sometimes it's on like the company's website, and down near the footer of that website it'll say like, subscribe today, or sometimes it's, if someone is browsing, they'll offer, you've probably seen those little banner ads that pop up and they'll say like, hey, 10% off if you sign up, provide your email. There's different ways that companies can capture an email from an interested party. So once they've subscribed, those lists are really valuable for companies. And the reason why is because they send out information to, it's not like cold calling, right? Somebody indicated that they're interested, so you're following up on that lead, and there's generally a big return on that investment. So for every dollar spent on email marketing, companies saw anywhere from $36 to $45 return on that. So again, this is good business sense for hotels, for clothing brands, for all, you name it. You know, people have figured out a way to make email work for them. Transactional emails are kind of my specialty, and they are event driven, and I'll get to that more in a minute. But for example, if you book a hotel room, you would typically get back in relatively short amount of time a reservation confirmation email, and it has things like your stay dates, the price you're paying, your confirmation number, any sort of cancellation policy, you know, that you might need to know. And that was kicked off by the fact that you booked that room, right? And then the transaction exchange, you paid for the room, and then it kicks back to you an email. So event-driven emails are a little bit different because it's almost like a receipt, right, for something that a person did. Marketing emails, it's very important, and in fact, due to standards like GDPR, to offer a quick and easy unsubscribe. Just anti-spam laws and policies have gotten, especially in Europe, and have gotten really good to where, you know, if you opted in, you should be able to easily opt out. Transactional emails are not as under that same scrutiny to offer quick and easy unsubscribes, although many do. It's just to be nice, you know, to people. I guess if you unsubscribe from the hotel that you just booked a room at, then you also might not get important information that you need. So it's kind of, I guess there's that. But if you don't want their emails, you know, you can get off the mailing list. It's just not as easy if it's marketing based typically. All right, any questions so far? You want me to? I can check the chat if you guys are putting questions in there, or are you good? Keep going.
We're just talking about how many unread emails we have.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you see that 6,753 notification. That just like makes my, I am a person of like, I'm a zero inbox person. I see that notification on that image there and I'm like, whoa. Yeah,
that's me too. I have like
yeah.
2 right now.
Yeah, no. But it seems like there's kind of 2 camps of people, right? Like you're either 6,000 notification unread emails guy or like us, inbox zero. But okay. Cool. Okay. All right. So this is something that in my line of work, I did not know because I didn't come from a hospitality background about hotels and how do hotels work. And so thinking about this, I just think this is interesting for anybody who's sort of interested with data and using data is how do hotels effectively keep track of all the people who are booking their rooms and coming and going every day, and when are they checking in and out and all that kind of stuff. So what they typically have is a pretty expensive service, software service that they purchase, and there's an install that occurs called a property management system that's driving all of that. So here it is in the middle. And all of the bookings and things that are happening from like a central reservation system are coming in through that property management system, and that data moves around in a lot of different ways. So there can be notifications sent like, oh, these people checked out, so now the housekeeping team knows you can go clean that room or prepare it for the next check-in. You know, there's all kinds of analytics and data reporting about how much, you know, how booked are you? Do we need to go run a promotion to the whole name of the game with hotels is to have people, you want to be as basically as booked as possible, right? To maximize your revenue. So there's all kinds of things that go on with the property management system. My team is just a very small slice of this where, you know, customer data that's coming in, even things like their first name, last name, you know, all of that, of course, is private, and we have to handle with care because, you know, you never know, there could be some celebrity checking into this hotel, and if that information got out, then it'd be bad, you know, headache for them or whatever. So, so we keep all of that data secured, but we work with it all the time about who's booking when and pulling in that information into the code that we work with. So that's why I have all of that heading to my team at Amadeus. That's the small piece where we connect to all this data. Once that is flowing and we have the connection established from Amadeus to the booking engine, basically to the property management system that they're working, there's two things that start getting built and stored. And I'm more of a front end person. All of this is happening more in the back end. So I have working knowledge of exactly how, like, I don't know exactly how the customer profiles are set up and all of that is stored in a database. Since I'm more of a front end focus, but I do know that once it's there, customer profiles start getting built out, and they do try to encourage customers to come back to the hotel. So to offer the best service possible, they start storing information like, oh, hey, Mr. Martinez likes his hotel room at 78 degrees and gummy bears provided in the snack. You can actually store all of that, so that if you want Mr. Martinez to come back and you really want to go above and beyond with your customer service, you could honor those personal preferences. So there's a profile stored. In Europe, if you want to be completely deleted and forgotten, you have the right and legal right to do that. In America, it's a little bit, I think, we're not quite there yet. But just know, any hotel you've ever stayed at, they probably still have a profile about you in some capacity, unless it was a really long time ago and they did some sort of cleanup purge. Just there's that. The other thing is booking information comes in, and if you think about it, if I'm sending out an email to confirm your reservation, I can't hard code your first name, last name, and your confirmation number, and then have like a million hard coded versions of emails going out that I have to somehow manually maintain, right? So that's where we have to use dynamic content, and we make one email boilerplate actually pull in dynamically, either through JavaScript or it's kind of like merge tags, basically, in the email body. We make one email do all the things. And then that way it can work for everybody who's booking in every way that they have booked. So let me show you some examples of what my team does. Let's see here. This will cooperate. All right. So when this is customer information that a lot of hotels have no idea what a good email should look like. And so we try to coach them on that. But then basically, these are just some samples that we have of like, okay, we have hard coded in different names to show you here. But ordinarily, like for instance, this greeting is dynamically done. And then we have all of these informations that someone would be receiving. All of this is dynamically done because, again, it does not make sense. It's not scalable or sustainable to hard code each of these things. So we have merge tags that pull this in instead of just right now. This is just dummy data, right? And so the other thing that we're always keeping an eye on in email design is my team is trying to drive revenue for the hotel. So we think about like, okay, maybe they want to book dining reservations ahead of time, right? So offer them that opportunity. And then the hotel has a way to already have, people that they're prepared for and they're staffed for because reservations are being booked ahead of time and all of that. So that's typically part of our work to keep revenue going. Apart from a reservation confirmation email, we also have pre-arrivals. So like after you get your confirmation, but before you arrive, again, revenue opportunities, just to say like, hey, here's some specials you might want to take advantage of while you're here. Here's a visitor's guide, right? So again, chance to connect with your customer before they actually get to your property. Then sometimes hotels have an on-property email that they send. So once the guest is already checked in, and again, because we're connected to the booking engine data, we can find out when, we can time this and set up a workflow for when that would send, just to welcome them and let them know anything they might need to know. We do have, in the event that you cancel your stay, we send out, a different type of email. Here's an example of one where just confirming that we got it. You can't come this time, but if you've ever changed your mind or back in this area, we love for you to stay with us anyway. Sometimes they take the opportunity to offer a rebooking incentive after the cancel goes out. And then finally, this is another one that you probably have even received this kind of thing, where once you've stayed and you have checked out and we received that piece of data, we can trigger a send of a post-stay email and get a survey result going so that the web forms that my team builds also can be completed. And then that way the hotel is getting valuable feedback about what was great about your stay, what maybe needs some improvement. If there's a lot that we can do there, where if a net promoter score is below a certain point, then they actually can have a chance to follow up with that guest and make it right. If they just really had a terrible stay or something like that, right? So all this is to say, all of these emails going out are typically HTML done. And when I had mentioned MJML before, that is a shorthand way of doing HTML. So I will, let's see, I'll get back to my, if I can get back to my slides. But so all of these emails that are going back and forth, we typically call them a core 4. Lots of people set up even more than that. So I just wanted to give you a basic overview of what my team works on, and just a little bit different than website. So speaking of that, here are some of my favorite differences. So in developing websites, JavaScript is typically is one very common front-end way to add a lot of functionality. But in email, all JavaScript gets stripped out by the email client. And that is, they just assume that it's malicious, that you're trying to run some sort of virus script or something like that. So you cannot actually put a script tag directly in or attached to an email. So I know I just said a minute ago, wait a minute, I use JavaScript. How do you do that? And so we have to run the logic in our content management system and then take the output of that code and spit it out on my email in our little merge tags, right? So we cannot actually run the logic for, oh, if you were this stay dates and you were also this rate code, then now you see this piece of information. But on the other hand, if you were something else, you see something else. Like none of that can be in the email itself. That all has to be handled separately, and then the output pulled into the email from there to be safe. Oops. Another one is, I remember this when I came through the responsive web design track back when that was I guess, I don't know if it's still called that, but that track in Free Code Camp. And so I remember learning, like, don't do inline CSS if you can help it, like avoid spans, and definitely avoid important because it causes headaches. And email is the opposite. You have to inline everything and use important all the time, because most email clients don't allow you to link to an external style sheet. Again, it's viewed as you could be linking to something not great. And so the most that we can probably do is safely is like link to Google fonts and pull in some certain fonts into our designs. But there are definitely email clients that don't even, they'll just strip that out and go to your next fonts in your stack. So there's just a lot to consider there. So when you start looking at email code, it looks very different style-wise. It looks overstyled compared to web. And in web, you have, to that end, you have a lot of different font and color choices that you can use, and they including custom ones, and they generally render the way that you want them to. But in email, you have to stick to 6-digit hex colors and about 12 email safe fonts. For the most consistent rendering when your email is opened. Those email safe fonts are typically system fonts that are either installed on most machines kind of by default, or similar. So things like Arial, Helvetica, Times New Roman, those are the sorts of fonts that lots of email systems recognize. But anything that's like, for instance, cursive or a script, you're probably not going to get that to turn out in every single client device and browser and way that you open that email. It'll turn into something else that you didn't intend. So before I show you just a little bit of code, because I know sometimes it's helpful to see the code, these are just some of my final thoughts. There's just many ways to use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? So if you are enjoying learning those things, but you don't see yourself as a software engineer per se, that's fine. I mean, and software engineers are great too. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it's easy when you're starting out to get overwhelmed with what should I do with this, or where do I fit in tech? And email is just one of many ways. I also think especially if you're learning and the goal is to change careers, it's important to code every day, even if it's only for 10 minutes, because you've probably had this happen where you started working on a project and then life happened and got crazy and you didn't touch it for like 2 weeks, and then you try to go back and pick up where you left off. And that can really be difficult sometimes to remember what was your train of thought and what were you doing, at least in my experience. It's better if I do a little bit every day than a lot once every couple of weeks. I just got more out of it. And baby steps add up. The other thing I was not prepared for, even coming through a coding boot camp too, I guess I had the impression that, again, if you're a software engineer, maybe you do a lot of coding from scratch, like nothing. But honestly, when you are hired in a company, there's usually quite a big existing code base that you are going to be asked to go in and modify and update without breaking it, right? So that, I believe that is a skill, to be able to go in and read other people's code that you didn't write. And sometimes it's not even very well commented, or you're like, what the heck is this even doing, right? So try to read other people's code, try to edit it and run it without breaking it or make changes and updates. And also use browser dev tools, so you can kind of inspect and see, change things there and play with, like, see what class is actually governing that thing. That's a useful skill too, that I didn't really realize how much of that in an actual job that I would be doing. And then finally, in the interest of making progress and not getting frustrated and giving up, this was conveyed to me by one of my favorite coding instructors, and I've even implemented this on my team, because it can be tempting to want to figure it all out yourself and to stay on that thing for hours and hours until you figure it out. But most jobs, you do not have time. Like, you will fall behind on your tasks if you're ticket driven, or if something's urgent. You just can't necessarily give yourself 10 hours to figure out something all on your own and then say, like, aha, I did it, right? So the 20-minute rule is just what it sounds like, that if you have Googled and tried and edited and done everything you know to do for 20 minutes and you're still stuck, I would advise that you reach out for help. And chances are somebody else, either in sounds like the Discord chat is the most active one that these days instead of Slack or other channels, but asking for help is even I would say a teamwork skill, and it goes around and comes around, right? So sometimes you'll be the one asking for help, and then other times you'll be the helper, helping other people get unstuck on a project that you already maybe have stepped through or something like that. That way, you're not getting so frustrated and you're banging your head against the wall, and you're able to keep moving forward. So, okay. So let me close this out here. Okay, so any thoughts or questions before we look at a little code? I know we're also kind of coming up on 8 o'clock here, so.
I'm excited to see the code.
Okay.
I like the code.
Yeah, so there's just, I don't know, it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around without seeing code. So, okay, let me see if I can pull that up here real quick. Okay, I'm going to show just a really simple email here, and then we can talk about what we see here, and then if I can minimize this out of the way. Okay. All right, so here we have, this actually is a template that we have for a real hotel. I work with this account a lot. So this is the view and browser rendering. Let's see if I can get it. And you can just see here. Okay, so in my company, these little @ are our indicator of the dynamic content coming in and pulling in from this hotel's profile. So that's what those are about. But so this is trying to get the person to rebook, that they have completed their last day, it's been 6 months, and they just ping that person to try to get them to book again, right? And so they have a call to action trying to do that. This is a pretty little short and sweet email, right? Compared to some of the other ones I was showing you at confirmation. So so here, let me go up to the top. So just taking it from the top, you can see, this is definitely HTML output, right? But I coded it in the framework that I referenced earlier called MJML. And what I like about MJML, I can go to there too in a minute, is that it puts in a lot of conditional commenting and other important code in the backend to help it look good in as many instances as possible. So here, for instance, this commented out conditional commenting is something that emails have a lot of, and this is literally saying if it's Microsoft Outlook or Internet, IE or any some weird thing, you need to do this code. If it's not, you can go ahead and render the normal, right? So conditional commenting is something that I had not heard of until I got into email, and MJML handles a lot of that for you automatically, as I mentioned. So here you can see that I'm not linked, like I pulled in Google fonts here, but as I mentioned, that's about as much as you can link to successfully and not have it get stripped out of your code. And then there's a lot of styling up here in the head section of the email as opposed to the body. This is all up in like media queries so that this is going to look better, on certain devices. And I'm sure you're probably familiar with that concept. And other inline styling, classes and things that have been applied to different components in this email, right? So it seems like a lot of CSS for one short little email. And if you're thinking that, you would be right. At least to me, I remember when I first was introduced to this, it just seems overstyled, right? But it's, again, the point of that is to get it to look as good as you can in as many different situations as possible. All right, so getting down here to inside the body of the email, here's the body tag, right? The first thing that you will notice in emails is tables and so many tables. Like, what the heck? Why are there so many tables? And again, that's just to maintain the integrity of the whole email the best. That's what email developers have found works the best, is so many tables nested inside each other. And you get used to reading it, and it actually becomes kind of modular. You can start to estimate by looking at this. This section here might be its own table of information, right? And then the footer of this email might be its own table of information. But that's another departure from other style, like other development styles. Usually there's not tables and tables and tables of information going on. I am a big fan of formatting, by the way, for this purpose, just so that you can kind of keep track of where you are. Okay, so then in all of this, if we wanted to keep expanding this out, you can just start to see more and more going on, nesting on into here, right? Some classes from MJML that are getting automatically applied. Kind of remind, if you're familiar with like Bootstrap classes, those are pulling in and doing the magic, and it's all maintained by Bootstrap, right? Similarly, MJML does that too. And all we have to do is put in code with it reap the benefits of the work that the MJML team does. So more tables. I think I've probably made my point, right, of just how nested these tables are. That's just something that you get used to in looking at the HTML of emails. Let's see, any other questions or anything about this while I'm on the code? So MJML here. Highly recommend if you're interested in email to work with this or to get to know this. This is really new, and I just really have enjoyed working with it, as I mentioned. So you can see here in this little snippet, all of these tags, it's actually outputting the highly styled HTML that you saw just a moment ago. But when at the front, you see it's a lot less cluttered and busy, right? So Litmus is one of the email development major players, and they endorse it. Lots of people basically have enjoyed working with this. It's open source and maintained by the community too. So most people had never heard of MJML until recently, and it's getting adopted pretty widely because of how many problems it solves for people who are in email. So just thought I'd throw that out there too. I know we're kind of running out of time, but yeah, MJML for the win. All right, let's see. So I see we do not use Flexbox or Grid in emails. That is correct, Adrian. Thank you for asking that question. We do. I could give you a whole nother talk about the web forms we create for hotels and the surveys where we have gotten fancy and used those there. But you know, since email is, we just can't use things like that. And in fact, the JavaScript that we run in our content management system is plain vanilla. So when we're hiring, just something to consider, there are, you know, you can't always use React things, right? I mean, React is great and all, but you have to be able to do it like in straightforward JavaScript. So let's see, a little bit off topic, but where do you insert analytics stuff? So do you mean like Google Analytics, like tracking links, or what are you? Yeah, okay. So so those basically, once those have been created, you can just attach those to anything that you want to be clickable in your email. That does not get stripped out or anything like that. And then my company, we actually have our own, any URL that you put in an email, whether the person has customized it or not, we automatically convert it into a tracking link so that they can see like how many people click that button to book now or whatever it is. We handle it a little bit differently just in-house. Yeah, the table layouts. Wow. Yes. Yeah.
So are there like frameworks for this or no? Or is it just, or did I miss the answer?
So I guess, like, as I mentioned, I would call MJML, and I think they call themselves a framework. But in terms of what, I guess it's going to depend on what the content management system is capable of running if you're in an email development role. So the one that we're in is kind of old and grouchy and only work, like you can't even use ES6. You have to like back up in the JavaScript that you speak to the old grouchy system that we work in, right? So it's okay. It's just something to get used to and keep in mind. And yeah, I think that's going to depend a lot though on other, like some other email service providers that like you probably heard of MailChimp and some other ones like that. I'm not honestly sure what their systems can handle for JavaScript logic that they can output to the page. Is that what you're asking? Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody asked something in the chat.
Oh, let's see. Oh, yes, sources for learning email development. Yes, there are some really good ones out there that definitely through, I guess it's LinkedIn Learning now. It used to be Lynda, but if you have a library card, you basically can access all of that for free. It's a good place to start. I like free is good. Some other ones are more paid learning development, but the two, Litmus is definitely a good one, and then also Email on Acid. And those two platforms, they have lots of blogs and podcasts and resources there. I would start there too. Most of it is free. My team pays for an account with Email on Acid because they have a testing platform. It's part of our QA process. So when we develop an email and we send it through that platform, it basically simulates as many different ways that that email could be opened and sorts them by OpenStats to be like the top 25 most common ways, most likely ways that this email is going to look. And we can code for that and fix for that if we notice something not aligning properly, or then that testing platform, Email and Asset Offers, is really helpful. Litmus also has a good one too, but that part is paid. But those are two definite resources that are very good. Out of curiosity, Mohammed, not to put you on the spot, but so how did you end up in email? Did you start training to be an email developer, or were you starting with web and kind of fell into email?
No, it's pretty random actually.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I was trying to break into the industry by doing product design, like trying to become a UX designer or a UI designer.
Mhm.
But I was having trouble breaking in, so I figured, you know what, let me just try to get somewhere in tech and then try to move up in the team, or go somewhere else and move up. And my brother, he's a contractor, and he pretty much got a list of emails of project management companies or property management companies to reach out to. So he just asked me, he's like, do you think you could do this for me? And I said, sure, I'll try. And then I just bought a free template online, and I did a little bit of HTML and CSS back in college. So I was
Nice.
able to just swap out the content and just got a MailChimp account for him, and then sent it out. And then I just did some of those campaigns for a little while. And then when I was applying for jobs, I realized that my email developer marketing resumes were getting more hits than the product design stuff. So I thought, you know what, it makes more sense to do it now. And then I pretty much did the same thing that you were saying, Email and Acid and Litmus have really great stuff on there, and also YouTube.
Yeah.
And then I purchased a couple of short classes as well. They weren't too much. They were like a couple $100s, but those pretty much gave me some pieces to build. And then I put that on my portfolio and GitHub, and pretty much just started to apply for some jobs. And I think the pandemic really helped the email world, because
Yes.
everyone had to go quickly switch to digital, and then there's all these needs for these transactional emails, and then that's somewhere where an email developer comes in and does that sort of work.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that, because I just think hearing everybody's path is really interesting, and it can be helpful. It sounds like there might be a lot of people here at this meetup that are just starting their path. So maybe it will help those people too. But yes, when I was hired, I had let's see. So I had worked my way through Free Code Camp, most of the way through the responsive web design certification. Then I went to Coding Dojo Bootcamp for 3 months. And I was able to afford to do that because I sold my house, and I lived off the proceeds of that. I downsized to a 1-bedroom apartment and committed to career change for a year and worked really hard. And I feel very blessed that it worked out for me. But yeah, so, your second week of boot camp, woo, I feel ya. That is, like, as they say, drinking from a fire hose of information. But anyway, and speaking of boot camps, if you can afford to do them, great. If you are self-taught, awesome. I will tell you, nobody on my team has a degree in any of this. Like, I have a teaching degree, but it's not related to what I'm doing. So if that gives you any sort of reason to persevere. Right now, my team just closed a job posting. We've narrowed it down to 4 people we're interested in, but we did not list a college degree as a requirement. And we got lots of great talent and applications from people right away. And I think I just wanted to say, yes, college is great and college is important, but there are certainly plenty of opportunities out there if you don't have that in your background. But yes, self-taught, boot camp, free code camp, all the resources online for free, put it all together, build the things, and you will eventually get there. And I think the community here is really special, and I just still feel honored to be a part of it, and glad to be connected in a small way still, because I just see, all the different people getting to change jobs or whatever, reach their goals, right? And getting to, do what they want to do with code. So it's very inspirational. Let's see. Week 2 at work. Well, also that is also scary. It's like jumping onto a moving treadmill. Okay. Any advice for setting myself up for success and getting a job in email dev? So I will tell you, I mean, in my GitHub, I have not pushed any code to that repo in probably years. And honestly, the code that's there is probably really cringe because I didn't know what I was doing. So it's not as important, I would, in my 2 cents, in email to have a GitHub going for that. But that's one way to go about it. I think portfolios are the way, and just showing what you have built and designed. And with that, there are kind of 3 different swim lanes, although you may end up in a role that you wear all of these hats. But there's the marketing people who really do specialize in knowing things like analytics and come up with what promotion and sale offer they're going to promote at what time of year, and like all of that strategy and marketing strategy is different than designing the email, which people may use things like Adobe XD or lay it all out and make it look nice. But that is different than coding the email, right? So if you want to code the email and be an email developer, then you're definitely in the right place with Free Code Camp and HTML and CSS and JavaScript, right? If you want to be more of a designer, you probably need to add to that things like, I didn't know Photoshop or any of the stuff in like Adobe Creative Suite, but you can go ahead and kind of learn that because you're probably going to be asked to use it in your job. Just something to be familiar with. And then there was a question, I think, back there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ignore it, but as far as image optimization, yes, that's definitely a factor. So we typically recommend, most emails are about 600 pixels wide. So we say for like retina quality images, maybe 1200 pixel wide. And then, it's not advisable to do all image emails. There's that's another whole topic about why that's not accessible. Screen readers, even if they read the alt tags, it's just not ideal. It's better to have like live text and structure to the email so that the screen reader can interpret it correctly. So images are good and they can add a lot to your email, and but you have to use them with the knowledge that some people have them automatically switched off in their inbox and they won't see them right away unless they download, right? Or it can add to the load time overall of that email. So just something to consider. And then the accessibility piece too, of course, is important. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just kidding. I was just listening. I mean, I appreciate all the information that you provided, and I think it's really, really great. Of course, it's way over my head because I'm totally new. But
that's okay.
But like, will you be at the exchange tomorrow?
So I live right by the farmer's market, and I didn't know, but I probably can swing by. I don't know what time it is or what the details are.
It starts at 11, and somebody will probably be there until 3 unless nobody shows up.
Oh,
but I'll be there.
Man.
So for a little while, if nobody shows up, then I'll probably leave it like at 1. But
so I could come to the tail end of that, but my 13-year-old and I it's the last day of school, and we have a standing tradition to get frozen yogurt on the last day. And he's in 7th grade, and I asked him, like, do you still want to do froyo? I thought maybe he was like too cool for that now. Nope, we are getting froyo tomorrow at noon. He's in early dismissal, so I could. Thanks. So I can come by after that, but I won't be able to be there right at 11. So. I think it's important to just keep networking, and like Kenny, definitely everybody starts somewhere, right? Nobody's just walks into all this knowing it. And even in, like I said, half the time I feel like, maybe 25% of my daily work is like what I know, but a lot of it is like what I can figure out, what I can search up, what I can, somebody's frustrated when something isn't working and I have to debug it, and that's what they're paying me to do. Like, it's not even necessarily all. There's always the opportunity to learn. So it can be overwhelming at first, is what I'm saying. So don't worry if you feel like you don't know. There's lots that I don't know. Let's see. Accessibility tools specific to email development. So again, Litmus and Email and Asset have a lot of good resources. I am not sure if like Ally or any of these other that specialize in accessibility have a particular email resource. But there are, similar to when you're considering that for websites, all of the tags and the structure of your code affects how a screen reader interacts with it. So it's a little bit different in email, but thankfully all the tables and tables and tables actually kind of help keep it organized in that aspect. But I'll think of, there's so many different resources, and I linked things in this slideshow. Is it possible to share the slides, Jonathan, to the group somehow? Or what do you
Yeah, I
think?
mean, if you have like is it like a Google Drive?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, or a Google Slides. Yeah, I mean, you can share the link in the Discord if you want, or send it to me and I can put it in there or whatever.
Okay, just because those link out to just different articles and resources that I think are helpful and I can continue to communicate with people who have a particular email interest if I come across something good. But yeah, the ones I mentioned about Litmus and Email and Asset have a lot. That's a really good place to start. All right. Well, I appreciate all y'all being here on this call. And I know it's been a sad and stressful week. I did not get to polish and present this as much as I would have liked, being quite honest, just because I had a lot on my mind and had trouble concentrating this week. Obviously, a lot of tragedy happened. So I just appreciate you hearing me, listening to me, showing up, and keep showing up. And I wish you the best in reaching your coding goals. And hopefully I'll see more of you guys if we go, do events and things. Maybe I'll meet some of you in person.
Thank you, Melissa. We appreciate you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're very welcome.
Have a good
And-
evening, everyone.